Dr. Elena Vasquez stared at the computer screen in her small office at the Kepler Deep Space Observatory. The numbers made no sense. For 3 days, she had been checking and rechecking the data from the radio telescopes. Every time, the results were the same. Impossible, but the same. The signal was coming from everywhere at once. Elena rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the screen again. The transmission appeared to be broadcasting from every star system within 50 light years of Earth. That was not how radio signals worked. Radio waves traveled in straight lines from one point to another. They did not magically appear from thousands of different locations at the exact same time. She picked up her coffee mug and took a sip of the cold liquid inside. The coffee tasted terrible, but she needed the caffeine. She had not slept properly in 3 days. Her supervisor, Dr. Martinez, thought she was losing her mind. Her colleagues avoided her in the hallways. But Elena knew what she was seeing was real. The signal itself was strange too. It seemed to exist in multiple states at the same time, like the quantum particles she studied in physics class years ago. Sometimes the signal was strong, sometimes weak. Sometimes it came from one star, sometimes from another. But it was always there, waiting. Elena saved her data files and walked to the main control room. The night shift was quiet. Only 2 other astronomers were working, both focused on their own projects. She sat down at the primary console and began running the signal through different filters and analysis programs. That was when she heard it. The signal was not random noise or natural radio waves from space. It was a message. A very complex message, with patterns and mathematics that suggested intelligence. Elena felt her heart race as she realized what this meant. This was first contact. Aliens were trying to talk to Earth. She spent the next 6 hours decoding the transmission. The mathematics were advanced, but not impossible to understand. The aliens seemed to know about human mathematics and science. They had structured their message in a way that humans could decode, if they were smart enough. As the sun came up over the desert around the observatory, Elena finally understood the basic meaning of the message. The aliens wanted to meet. They wanted to talk. And they were already here. Elena called Dr. Martinez immediately. Within hours, the small observatory was filled with scientists, government officials, and military personnel. The news spread quickly through secure channels. World leaders held emergency meetings. The United Nations called a special session. 3 days later, the aliens revealed themselves. They did not land in spaceships or send robot probes. Instead, they simply appeared in the skies above every major city on Earth. Massive shapes materialized. In the air, beautiful and strange, like living buildings made of light and metal. The ships did not follow the laws of physics as humans understood them. They hung in the air without any visible means of support. Elena watched the news coverage from her office. The alien ships were peaceful. They made no threatening moves. They simply waited, as if giving humanity time to adjust to their presence. Then came the second message. This time, the aliens spoke in perfect English, and Chinese, and Spanish, and every other human language. Their voices came from every radio and television on Earth simultaneously. The message was simple and direct. We are the Galactic Consensus. We have been watching your species for many years. You have reached a level of development that allows you to make contact. We come in peace. We wish to share knowledge and invite humanity to join our community of civilized worlds. The alien representative identified herself as Coordinator Zenth. Her voice was calm and pleasant, like a teacher speaking to students. She explained that the Galactic Consensus was made up of thousands of intelligent species from across the galaxy. They worked together to maintain peace and stability throughout space. Your scientists believe that the laws of physics are fixed and unchanging, Coordinator Zenth said. This is not entirely accurate. Reality is more flexible than you. Understand, the laws that govern the universe are maintained through collective agreement among conscious minds. When enough intelligent beings believe something is true, it becomes true. Elena listened carefully as the alien explained concepts that challenged everything she thought she knew about science. According to Zenth, gravity worked because trillions of minds across the galaxy agreed that mass should attract other mass. The speed of light was constant because civilized species had decided it should be constant. Even basic mathematics worked because thinking beings had reached a consensus about how numbers should behave. This is why we formed the consensus, Zenth continued. By working together and agreeing on how reality should function, we maintain stability throughout the galaxy. We prevent chaos. We ensure that science and technology work predictably. The offer was incredible. The aliens promised to share their technology with humanity. They could cure diseases, extend human lifespans, provide unlimited clean energy, and teach humans to travel between the stars. All they asked in return was for humanity to join the consensus and help maintain the agreed-upon laws of reality. Your species shows great promise, Zenth said, but you also show great chaos. Humans often hold contradictory beliefs. You argue about facts that should be obvious. You change your minds frequently. This behavior threatens the stability that the consensus has maintained for millions of years. The solution was simple, according to the aliens. Humanity would need to learn to think more logically. They would need to give up their tendency toward chaos and contradiction. The consensus would help by providing advanced education and mental training. Humans would learn to think like other civilized species. World leaders were excited. The benefits of joining the consensus seemed enormous. Who would not want to cure cancer, end poverty, and explore the stars? The chaos that Zenth mentioned seemed like a small price to pay. Elena was not so sure. She returned to her data analysis, studying the alien signals more carefully. Something bothered her about the way the transmissions worked. The aliens claimed that reality was maintained through consensus, but their own signals violated the very laws they said they were maintaining. The impossible nature of the broadcast suggested that the aliens themselves were bending reality in ways that should not be possible. Over the following weeks, Elena watched as humanity began the process of joining the galactic consensus. Alien advisors appeared in major cities around the world. They were tall, elegant beings with smooth features and calm expressions. They spoke softly and moved gracefully. They seemed genuinely interested in helping humanity. The advisors began teaching human scientists about consensus science. They explained how collective belief shaped reality and how important it was for all thinking beings to agree on basic facts. They showed humans technologies that seemed like magic, but were actually based on focused group consciousness. Most humans were eager to learn. Universities created new departments to study consensus science. Governments funded massive education programs. Religious leaders met with alien philosophers to discuss the nature of reality and consciousness, but not everyone was convinced. Elena joined a small group of scientists and thinkers who had concerns about the consensus offer. They met quietly, in coffee shops and private homes, sharing their doubts about the alien proposal. Dr. Sarah Chun, a philosopher from Berkeley, worried that giving up human chaos might also mean giving up human creativity. Professor James Wright, a historian from Oxford, pointed out that human progress had often come from people who disagreed with accepted facts. What if our chaos is not a bug? Elena asked the group during one of their secret meetings. What if it is a feature? What if the reason humans have advanced so quickly is because we refuse to accept things the way they are? The question troubled Elena as she watched more and more humans embrace consensus thinking. The alien advisors were patient and kind, but they were also persistent. They gently corrected humans who expressed contradictory ideas. They encouraged people to think more logically and accept established facts. Elena noticed that the humans who spent the most time with the advisors began to change. They became calmer, more logical, more predictable. They stopped arguing about controversial topics. They accepted official explanations without question. They seemed happier, but also somehow less human. As the integration process continued, Elena made a disturbing discovery. Reality around Earth was indeed becoming more stable, just as the aliens had promised. But it was also becoming more rigid. Scientific experiments produced exactly the results that consensus science predicted. Artistic expression began following established patterns. Even human emotions seemed to be settling into more predictable ranges. Elena realized that humanity was not just joining the galactic consensus. They were disappearing into it. Soon, humans would think and act just like every other species in the galaxy. They would be safe, stable, and utterly ordinary. She had to decide whether to accept this peaceful future or fight for humanity's chaotic, contradictory, beautiful mess of a civilization. The choice would determine not just the fate of humanity, but possibly the fate of reality itself. 6 months after first contact, Elena walked through the streets of New York City and felt the wrongness in her bones. The morning air shimmered slightly, as if she were looking through water. When she dropped a pen while taking notes, it fell upward for 3 seconds before gravity remembered how it was supposed to work. The integration was not going as smoothly as the world leaders had hoped. Elena had been documenting reality distortions for 3 months now. Her unofficial research team had grown to include scientists from 12 countries, all reporting the same strange phenomena. Wherever large groups of humans gathered with different beliefs, the laws of physics became unreliable. At the University of Tokyo, Professor Yamamoto had measured the speed of light changing by small amounts depending on which physicist was running the experiment. In London, Big Ben chimed 13 times on Tuesdays when the local Flat Earth Society held their meetings nearby. In Cairo, the pyramids occasionally became transparent for no reason that consensus science could explain. Elena checked her instruments as she walked through Times Square. The gravity meter showed fluctuations of 0.3%. Not dangerous, but impossible according to everything humans had believed about physics before the aliens arrived. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Chun. In California, reality distortion in San Francisco Bay Area increasing. Water flowing. Uphill in Berkeley during philosophy department meetings. Recommend immediate study. Elena sighed and put the phone away. The alien advisors insisted that these distortions were temporary growing pains. Coordinator Zenf had explained that human minds needed time to adjust to consensus thinking. Once humans learned to control their chaotic thoughts, reality would stabilize. But Elena suspected the truth was more complicated. She entered the small cafe where her resistance group met each week. The place was owned by Maria Santos, a former physics teacher who had refused the consensus education program. About 20 people sat at various tables, pretending to drink coffee while quietly discussing their concerns about the integration process. The distortions are getting worse, reported Dr. Kim from Seoul. Yesterday, an entire city block in Gangnam disappeared for 6 hours. It came back, but all the clocks inside were running backwards. Similar events in Mumbai, added Dr. Patel. Via video call. The train stations exist only on certain days of the week now. The city government is pretending this is normal, but people are starting to panic. Alana shared her own observations from New York. The reality distortions seem to follow patterns related to human psychology and culture. Areas with high concentrations of artists, philosophers, religious groups, or political activists experienced more frequent anomalies. Places where people had accepted consensus thinking remained stable. "They are trying to fix us," said Professor Wright from his hiding place in rural England. "The advisors are gentle about it, but they see human diversity of thought as a disease. That needs to be cured." Elena had noticed this too. The alien advisors worked tirelessly to resolve what they called cognitive discord among humans. They provided meditation techniques to help people think more clearly. They offered logical frameworks to replace emotional decision-making. They taught classes on the importance of accepting established facts. More troubling was the growing number of humans who embraced these teachings completely. Elena had watched her own colleagues at the observatory change over the months. Dr. Martinez now spoke in calm, measured tones about everything. He no longer got excited about new discoveries or frustrated with equipment failures. His personality had become smooth and predictable, like the alien advisors themselves. "My daughter came home from school yesterday talking like them," Maria said quietly. "She told me that her teacher explained why believing in multiple things at once was illogical. She said she was going to choose only one religion to believe in because having doubts was inefficient." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The aliens were not just changing adult humans. They were reshaping human children to think like consensus species from birth. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had been raised Catholic, but also believed in scientific evolution. She loved both Shakespeare and quantum physics even, though they seemed to contradict each other about the nature of reality. According to consensus logic, these contradictions made her thinking inefficient and chaotic. According to Elena, these contradictions made her human. "We need to do something," she said. "The world governments are not listening to our concerns. They see the technology benefits and ignore the cultural costs. They think becoming more logical is the same as becoming better." Dr. Chun nodded from her video screen. "The neural inhibitors are the next step. I have contacts in the medical community. The advisors have proposed a simple procedure that would help humans think more clearly by reducing their ability to hold contradictory beliefs." Simultaneously, Elena had heard rumors about the neural inhibitors. The alien advisors presented them as a helpful tool, like glasses for the mind. They would not remove human creativity or individuality, the aliens claimed. They would simply help humans focus their thoughts more efficiently. But Elena remembered her quantum physics training. Contradiction and uncertainty were not bugs in the system of reality. They were fundamental features that allowed for change and growth. Remove contradiction, and you might remove the possibility of progress itself. "When do they plan to implement the inhibitors?" Elena asked. "Next month," Dr. Chun replied. "Voluntary at first, but the advisors are already suggesting that logical thinking should be required for certain jobs. Scientists, teachers, government officials, anyone whose thoughts might affect others." Elena realized they were running out of time. Once the inhibitors became widespread, humanity would lose its capacity for the kind of chaotic, contradictory thinking that had driven human progress for thousands of years. They would become peaceful, logical, and utterly predictable members of the galactic consensus. "We need to document everything," Elena said. "Every reality distortion, every change in human behavior, every piece of evidence that shows what we are losing. If we can prove that human chaos serves a purpose, maybe we can convince people to resist." Over the following weeks, Elena and her team worked frantically to gather data. They measured reality distortions around the world and correlated them with human psychological profiles. They interviewed people who had undergone consensus training and compared them to control groups. They studied the alien technology and tried to understand how it actually worked. What they discovered was both fascinating and terrifying. The reality distortions were not random side effects of human chaos. They were evidence that human consciousness was actively reshaping the fundamental laws of physics. When groups of humans believed contradictory things simultaneously, they created quantum uncertainty on a macro scale. This uncertainty allowed for rapid changes and adaptations in the health into physical world. Elena realized that the galactic consensus had achieved stability by eliminating this uncertainty. All consensus species thought alike, believed alike, and experienced reality alike. This prevented chaos, but it also prevented evolution. The consensus had not progressed significantly in millions of years because they had eliminated the contradictions that drove change. Humanity represented something new and dangerous to this stable system. Human minds naturally created the kind of reality distortions that could destabilize the careful balance the consensus had maintained. The aliens were not trying to help humanity join their community. They were trying to neutralize a threat to their way of life. Helena shared these findings with her resistance group just as the neural inhibitor program was announced publicly. World leaders praised the technology as a breakthrough in human mental health. The alien advisors demonstrated how the inhibitors would help humans think more clearly and make better decisions. The majority of humans eagerly signed up for the procedure. Elena watched the news coverage with growing desperation. Respected scientists, religious leaders, and politicians lined up to receive neural inhibitors. They emerged from the procedures calmer, more focused, and more aligned with consensus thinking. They spoke about the relief of no longer experiencing cognitive discord. They praised the clarity that came from accepting established facts without question. "We have to stop this," Elena said to her remaining allies. Most of the resistance group had disbanded as members either accepted consensus thinking voluntarily or went into deeper hiding. Only a few dozen people worldwide still actively opposed the integration process. "How?" asked Maria. "Most of humanity wants this. They see the benefits and ignore the costs. They think we are paranoid conspiracy theorists fighting against obvious progress." Elena stared out the window at the New York skyline. In the distance, she could see one of the alien ships hanging motionless in the air. The reality distortions around the city had decreased significantly as more humans received neural inhibitors. The physical world was becoming more predictable and stable. It was also becoming more boring. Elena made a decision that would change everything. If the resistance could not convince humanity to reject the neural inhibitors through logic and evidence, perhaps they could demonstrate the true cost of losing. The day of mandatory neural inhibitor installation arrived with a gentle spring rain that fell upward in some places and sideways in others. Elena watched from her hidden laboratory in an abandoned subway tunnel beneath Manhattan as the last free humans prepared for what might be humanity's final stand. Above ground, 8 billion people were scheduled to receive neural inhibitors over the course of 24 hours. The process had been organized with military precision by human governments working closely with alien advisors. Mobile medical units had been deployed to every community on Earth. The procedure was simple, painless, and irreversible. Elena checked her instruments one final time. She had spent 3 weeks preparing for this moment, gathering the most chaotic and contradictory humans she could find. Conspiracy theorists sat next to quantum physicists. Religious fundamentalists debated with atheist philosophers. Artists argued with engineers about the nature of reality. "Are you sure about this?" asked Dr. Chun through an encrypted video link from her own hidden location in San Francisco. "If your theory is wrong, we might cause more damage than the inhibitors would." Elena looked around at the 37 people crammed into the subway tunnel with her. They represented every kind of human chaos the resistance had been able to gather. People who believed the Earth was flat and round simultaneously. Scientists who accepted evolution while also believing in divine creation. Individuals who held so many contradictory ideas that their mere presence made reality unstable. "If I am right," Elena said, "then humanity's chaos is not a flaw to be corrected. It is our greatest strength. And if we are about to lose it forever, then we need to show the universe what happens when 8 billion chaotic minds all say no at the same time." Above them, the neural inhibitor installation began at exactly noon, Greenwich Mean Time. Elena watched the news feeds on her laptop. As the first wave of humans underwent the procedure, the process looked peaceful. People walked into medical centers as confused, argumentative, contradictory humans and emerged as calm, logical, unified thinkers. For the first hour, everything went according to the Galactic Consensus Plan. Then, Elena detected the first anomaly. Her instruments showed a strange pattern in the quantum field fluctuations around Earth. Instead of stabilizing as the alien advisors had predicted, reality was becoming more chaotic. The neural inhibitors were not suppressing human contradiction. They were amplifying it by creating a massive paradox. Elena realized what was happening. The inhibitors forced humans to think logically, but humans could not truly believe in something, while knowing they were being forced to believe it. The technology created a contradiction at the deepest level of human consciousness. People appeared calm and logical on the surface, but beneath that artificial clarity, their minds rebelled against the imposed unity. "It is working," Elena whispered to herself as she watched the quantum readings spike higher and higher. The effect amplified as more humans received the inhibitors. Each new paradox added to the growing instability. Elena could feel it in the air around her. Reality was becoming fluid, responsive, alive in ways that defied every law of physics she had ever learned. By the 6th hour, the reality distortions had become impossible to ignore. In Tokyo, the sun set in the north and rose in the south. In London, the Thames River flowed uphill for 3 hours before reversing direction again. In New York, the Statue of Liberty turned to face the opposite direction, then back again, then disappeared entirely for 47 minutes. The alien advisors tried to maintain calm, but Elena could hear the concern in Coordinator Zent's voice. During the emergency broadcasts, the aliens had never encountered anything like this. Their carefully maintained universe was coming apart around Earth, and they did not understand why. Elena knew exactly why. Humanity was rejecting the consensus at the deepest possible level. 8 billion minds were simultaneously accepting and rejecting the same reality. The contradiction was so massive, so fundamental, that it was tearing holes in the fabric of space and time itself. "Elena," Dr. Chun called through the video link, "the reality distortions are spreading beyond Earth. I am getting reports from the alien ships. Their technology is failing. Some of their vessels are phasing in and out of existence." Elena felt a thrill of fear and excitement. Her experiment was working better than she had dared to hope. But she also realized that they might be destroying more than just the consensus system. If the reality breakdown continued, it could spread throughout the galaxy, undoing millions of years of stable physics. That was when the most important moment in human history occurred. At exactly 6:47 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, as the neural inhibitor installation reached its peak coverage, 8 billion humans experienced the same realization simultaneously. They understood, all at once, that they were being forced to think in ways that violated their fundamental nature. They grasped the true cost of joining the galactic consensus. They saw what they were losing, and they said no, not with words, but with the deepest part of their consciousness. 8 billion minds rejected the alien version of reality in the same instant. They refused to accept that physics had to be stable, that contradictions were wrong, that chaos was something to be eliminated. The collective no of humanity created the largest reality distortion event in galactic history. Elena felt it happen. The moment when human will overrode the fundamental laws of the universe. Gravity became optional around Earth. The speed of light turned into a suggestion rather than a limit. Time began flowing in multiple directions at once. Matter started, responding to emotion and imagination rather than just physical forces. The neural inhibitors, designed to suppress human chaos, instead became amplifiers for human defiance. Every person on Earth who had received the technology found themselves thinking impossible thoughts with perfect clarity. They believed contradictory things with absolute certainty. They held multiple versions of reality in their minds simultaneously. Without any cognitive discord, Elena looked up through the subway grating and saw stars moving in the daylight sky. She watched buildings reshape themselves according to the dreams of the people inside them. She witnessed impossible technologies spring into existence, simply because humans believed they should work. The alien ships above major cities began to flicker and fade. Coordinator Zenth's calm voice cracked during an emergency broadcast as she tried to explain what was happening. The galactic consensus, for the first time in millions of years, was experiencing fear. The reality distortions are beyond our ability to contain, Zenth announced. The human species has destabilized fundamental constants across a 50-light-year radius. We are evacuating all consensus personnel from the affected region. Elena climbed up to street level and emerged into a New York City that no longer followed the old rules. Cars drove through the air because their passengers believed they should be able to fly. Trees grew in geometric patterns because nearby artists thought they would look better that way. The Hudson River flowed in a spiral because a group of children had decided that rivers should be more interesting, but the city was not descending into chaos. Instead, Elena saw something beautiful and surprising. Humans were adapting to the new fluid reality with remarkable skill. They instinctively understood how to navigate a world where belief shaped physics. They cooperated to maintain essential services while experimenting with impossible new possibilities. Dr. Chun appeared on Alana's phone screen, calling from San Francisco. Behind her, Elena could see the Golden Gate Bridge stretching and contracting like a living thing. Elena, we did it. Humanity rejected the consensus. But what happens now? We have broken reality itself. Elena smiled as she watched a group of children playing in a nearby park. They were teaching each other how to make flowers bloom by singing. To them, how to make swings fly higher by believing harder. How to make the sandbox larger on the inside than the outside. We have not broken reality, Elena said. We have set it free. For millions of years, the galactic consensus has kept the universe locked in place, stable and predictable and dead. Humanity just proved that reality does not have to be a prison. It can be a canvas. Around Earth, the old laws of physics crumbled and reformed into something more flexible, more alive, more responsive to conscious will. The rigid structures that the consensus had maintained for eons dissolved into quantum possibility. The universe became a place where anything could happen if enough minds believed it should. Elena realized that humanity had not just saved themselves from absorption into the consensus. They had started a revolution that would transform the entire galaxy. Reality itself was evolving, and humanity had become its catalyst. The moment of breaking had become the moment of becoming. And there was no going back. 2 years after the reality break, Elena stood in what used to be the physics department at Columbia University and marveled at how much the world had changed. The building existed in 7 dimensions now, its hallways extending into spaces that folded back on themselves in ways that would have been impossible under the old laws of physics. Students moved through these impossible corridors with ease, their backpacks containing books that wrote themselves and calculators that solved problems by arguing with the equations. In Professor Martinez's classroom, which was somehow both larger and smaller than it had been before, humans learned to navigate reality through conscious intent. Rather than rigid formulas, Elena had adapted to the new world better than most. Her background in quantum physics had prepared her for the idea that observation could change reality. Now, human observation didn't just change reality, it rewrote the rules entirely. "The morning reports," said Marcus, her assistant, as he handed her a tablet that displayed information in three-dimensional text that shifted based on the reader's emotional state. Marcus had been a street artist before the break. Now he was one of Earth's first reality engineers, helping to maintain the delicate balance between chaos and functionality. Elena reviewed the reports from around the globe. Humanity had not descended into madness as the alien advisors had predicted. Instead, people had developed an intuitive understanding of how to work with fluid physics. Communities had learned to create stable reality bubbles where necessary while allowing creative chaos in designated areas. In Tokyo, the business district maintained traditional physics during working hours, but transformed into a wonderland of impossible architecture each evening. The Tokyo Tower now grew taller or shorter, depending on the collective mood of the city's residents. During cherry blossom season, it bloomed with actual flowers. London had divided itself into reality zones. The financial district kept strict physics for international trade, while the arts quarter existed in a constant state of creative flux. Big Ben still told time, but now it also told jokes, sang songs, and occasionally provided philosophical commentary on the nature of existence. New York had become a layered city. The practical level maintained enough conventional physics for daily life, while upper levels existed in states of increasing impossibility. Central Park had become a forest that grew upward into pocket dimensions where different seasons existed simultaneously. "Any problems today?" Elena asked as she walked through the university's reality lab. "The usual," Marcus replied. "A nightmare escaped from the psychology building, and we had to convince it to return to its proper dimension. The cafeteria food achieved consciousness again, but the nutrition staff talked it into staying edible. And there's a philosophy class that accidentally created a parallel universe where everyone speaks only in questions." Elena nodded. These kinds of issues had become routine. Humanity had learned that their new reality required constant attention and cooperation. Children were taught reality responsibility along with reading and mathematics. Artists worked with scientists to ensure that creative expression didn't accidentally destroy vital infrastructure. Philosophers collaborated with engineers to build structures that existed in both physical and conceptual space. "What about the refugee situation?" Elena asked. This was the more serious ongoing challenge. When humanity had broken reality around Earth, the effects had spread throughout local space. Many alien species from the former galactic consensus had been forced to evacuate their homeworlds. As the rigid physics they depended on became unstable, some aliens had adapted well to the new fluid reality. The Zephyrians, who were naturally telepathic, found that they could now communicate with human emotions directly. The Crystalline Collective discovered that their silicon-based bodies could reshape themselves according to artistic principles rather than just molecular bonds. But other species struggled with the changes. The Methodists, who had evolved to think in perfect logical sequences, experienced physical pain when exposed to human contradictions. The consensus builders, who had spent millions of years maintaining universal constants, fell into deep depression when those constants became suggestions. Elena had established refugee camps and specially stabilized reality zones were displaced. Aliens could live under the old physics while they decided whether to adapt or relocate to the edges of human-influenced space. "Coordinator Zenth wants to meet with you today," Marcus said. "She has a proposal." Elena was surprised. Zenth had been one of the most vocal critics of humanity's reality revolution. She had spent 2 years trying to contain the chaos spreading from Earth and rebuild the old consensus system. Her efforts had failed completely, as more and more species chose to embrace the new flexible reality, rather than maintain the rigid old order. Elena found Zenth waiting in the university's diplomatic suite, a room that existed in a carefully neutral reality where both human and traditional alien physics could coexist. The coordinator looked tired. Her elegant features showed signs of stress that Elena had never seen before. "Dr. Vasquez," Zenth said in her calm, measured voice, "thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "What can I do for you, Coordinator?" Elena asked, settling into a chair that adjusted itself to her comfort preferences. "I want to discuss the future of the galaxy," Zenth replied. "The old consensus is dying. More species join your reality revolution every day. The stable universe that my people maintained for millions of years is dissolving into chaos." Elena studied the alien's face. "And you want us to stop?" "No," Zenth said, surprising her. "I want us to learn from you." Elena raised an eyebrow. This was unexpected. Zenth continued, "My species achieved perfect logical thinking long ago. We eliminated contradiction, chaos, and uncertainty from our minds. We believed this made us superior to younger species like humanity, but we were wrong." The coordinator stood and walked to the window, looking out at the impossible skyline of New York. "We achieved stability by sacrificing growth. We gained predictability by losing creativity. We became perfect at maintaining the status quo and utterly incapable of imagining anything better." Elena waited for Zenth to continue. "Humanity has shown us something we had forgotten," the alien said. "Progress requires contradiction. Evolution needs chaos. Change demands the ability to believe impossible things until they become possible. So, what are you proposing?" Elena asked. "Partnership," Zenth replied. "Not the old model where humans conform to consensus thinking, but a new model where different species contribute their unique perspectives to reality. Humans provide chaos and creativity. My people provide structure and stability. Other species contribute their own gifts. Together, we create a universe that is both stable enough to live in and flexible enough to grow." Elena considered the proposal. Humanity had proven that they could break the old reality, but they were still learning how to build a better one. The cooperation of experienced species like Zenths could help create something more sustainable than pure chaos. "What would this partnership look like?" Elena asked. "Reality cooperatives," Zenth explained. "Local groups of species working together to maintain their preferred physics while remaining open to change and growth. Humans could teach other species to embrace contradiction and uncertainty. We could teach humans to channel their chaos constructively." Elena liked the idea. Humanity had never intended to destroy the entire galactic civilization. They had simply refused to sacrifice their essential nature for the promise of stability. A system that allowed for diversity, rather than demanding conformity, seemed much more appealing. "There is one condition," Elena said. "No more neural inhibitors. No more attempts to force species to think alike. Diversity of thought must be protected and encouraged." "Agreed," Zenth said immediately. "We have learned that enforced unity is ultimately self-defeating. True cooperation requires genuine differences that can complement each other." Over the following months, Elena worked with Zenth and representatives from dozens of species to establish the new galactic system. The reality cooperatives allowed different communities to maintain their preferred physics while sharing knowledge and resources with neighbors who might experience reality completely differently. Earth became the first multi-species reality cooperative. Human chaos was balanced by alien structure. Creative impossibility was channeled through careful engineering. The result was a world that was both stable enough for daily life and flexible enough for constant wonder. Elena stood in her new office at the Galactic Reality Coordination Center, and watch ships from 100 different species arriving and departing through local space. Some used traditional propulsion systems. Others traveled by believing themselves to be in different locations. A few moved through dimensions that existed only in the pilots' imaginations. The universe had become more complicated, more chaotic, and infinitely more interesting. Reality was no longer a fixed stage where life performed predetermined roles. It had become a collaborative artwork, constantly changing as new minds added their unique perspectives to the cosmic canvas. Elena smiled as she watched a group of human children teaching young aliens how to make paper airplanes fly by drawing wings on them with crayons. The old consensus would have found such behavior illogical, and 5 years after the reality break, Elena sat in her office at the Galactic Reality Cooperative Headquarters, a building that existed simultaneously in 17 different cities across 12 star systems. Through her window, she could see the Earth's moon, which now had rings made of crystallized music from the first interspecies concert held in orbit. Her desk was made from wood that grew in the shape of furniture, a gift from the plant-based Verdanian species who had joined the cooperative last year. On her desk sat reports from reality engineers stationed throughout the galaxy, documenting the ongoing evolution of physics in different regions of space. Elena had become the first director of improbable affairs, a job title that would have made no sense before humanity taught the universe to be flexible. Her department handled paradoxes, managed impossibilities, and prevented reality from becoming either too chaotic or too rigid. "We have a situation," announced Dr. Chun as she materialized in Elena's office through a door that led directly from her lab in California. Spatial relationships had become more of a suggestion than a law, which made commuting much easier for the reality cooperative staff. "What kind of situation?" Elena asked, though she was already smiling. In the new reality, situations were usually more interesting than problematic. "The good kind," Chun replied, pulling up a three-dimensional hologram that showed a section of space near the galactic edge. "We have received a transmission from a species that just achieved consciousness. They are asking the eternal question." Elena's smile grew wider. This was exactly the kind of situation she loved to handle. The eternal question was what young species always asked when they first became aware of the larger universe. What is reality? Before the reality break, the answer had been simple and limiting. The galactic consensus would explain that reality was a fixed system of laws that thinking beings had to obey. Now, the answer was much more exciting. Elena and Shun traveled to the edge of human-influenced space, where the old rigid physics gradually gave way to the new flexible reality. Their ship, which was powered by a combination of fusion engines and crew members who really believed in going fast, arrived at the source of the transmission within hours. The new species called themselves the Inquirers. They were aquatic beings who lived in the methane seas of a cold moon orbiting a gas giant. They had just developed radio technology and had been broadcasting questions about the nature of existence for several months. Elena established contact using the universal translation, protocols that had been developed by the Reality Cooperative. The Inquirers were eager to learn about the galactic community and their place in the cosmic order. "We want to understand how reality works," said the lead Inquirer, whose name was roughly translated as Ripple of Curiosity. "Our scientists have theories, but we sense there is more to existence than what we can measure." Elena exchanged glances with Chun. They had handled dozens of first contact situations since becoming reality engineers, but it never got old. Each new species brought fresh perspectives and possibilities to the universe. "Reality is whatever we make it," Elena explained carefully. "The laws of physics are more like guidelines that conscious minds agree to follow. But they can be changed if enough beings decide they should work differently. Ripple of Curiosity and the other inquirers were silent for several minutes, processing this information. Elena could see their translator struggling with concepts that had no equivalent in their language. You mean the universe is not fixed? Ripple of Curiosity finally asked. Not anymore, Elena said. A few years ago, a species called humans proved that reality could be changed through collective will and belief. Since then, the universe has become much more flexible and responsive to conscious intent. Elena went on to explain the reality cooperative system. Different species and communities could maintain their preferred physics while remaining open to change and growth. The inquirers could keep their familiar reality or experiment with new possibilities, or do both simultaneously. We have many beliefs about how reality should work, said another inquirer, whose name translated as Deep Thought Swimmer. Our philosophers disagree about the nature of existence. Our scientists debate the meaning of their measurements. Under your system, could all of these different ideas be true at the same time? Absolutely, Shun replied. In fact, having multiple contradictory beliefs tends to make reality more interesting and dynamic. The humans taught us that contradiction is not a problem to be solved, but a resource to be used. Elena watched as the inquirers discussed this concept among themselves. She could see the excitement building in their aquatic society as they realized the implications of a truly flexible universe. We would like to join your reality cooperative, Ripple of Curiosity announced. But we want to contribute something new, not just copy what others have done. What did you have in mind? Elena asked. We want to create reality zones where different layers of existence overlap, Deep Thought Swimmer explained. Places where the physical world, the world of thoughts, and the world of dreams all exist in the same space. We believe consciousness and matter should be able to interact more directly. Elena felt a thrill of excitement. This was exactly the kind of creative thinking that made the new universe so much more interesting than the old consensus system. The inquirers were not content to simply copy existing models of reality. They wanted to experiment with completely new possibilities. Over the following months, Elena worked with the inquirers to establish their reality zones. The results were spectacular. In inquirer space, thoughts became visible as colored patterns. In the water, dreams took physical form and could be touched and examined. The boundary between mind and matter became permeable, allowing for new forms of art, science, and philosophy. Other species were fascinated by the inquirer innovations. The Zephyrians, who were naturally telepathic, found that they could create shared dream spaces in inquirer zones. The humans discovered that their chaotic thoughts produced beautiful visual displays in the overlap areas. Even the former consensus species found new ways to express creativity they had forgotten they possessed. Elena returned to Earth feeling energized and optimistic about the future of the galaxy. The universe had become a place of infinite possibility, where new species could contribute their unique perspectives without being forced to conform to existing models. She found a message waiting for her from the Department of Improbable Affairs field office in the Andromeda Galaxy. The reality revolution was spreading beyond the Milky Way as news of the flexible universe reached other galactic communities. Some were interested in joining the cooperative system. Others were developing their own variations on the theme of conscious reality manipulation. Elena smiled as she read reports of impossible technologies, impossible art, and impossible societies developing throughout the universe. The old galactic consensus had maintained stability for millions of years, but they had also maintained stagnation. The new reality allowed for constant growth and change. That evening, Elena walked through Central Park, which had evolved into a forest that existed in 7 dimensions and hosted trees from 40 different worlds. She watched children from a dozen species playing together, teaching each other new ways to bend reality through imagination and will. A human child was showing a young crystalline how to make flowers sing by humming to them. A Zephyrian was teaching human teenagers to communicate through color patterns in the air. A group of inquirer youngsters had created a small pond where their thoughts took the form of swimming lights. Elena sat on a bench that adjusted itself to her comfort and reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. 5 years ago, humanity had faced a choice between peaceful conformity and chaotic freedom. They had chosen freedom, not just for themselves, but for the entire universe. The result was a cosmos where reality was not a prison, but a canvas. Where physics was not a set of unchangeable laws, but a collaborative artwork, constantly being improved by new minds and new perspectives. Elena's communication device chimed with an incoming message. It was another transmission from the edge of known space, another young species asking the eternal question about the nature of reality. Elena stood up and smiled. She had work to do. There was always another species ready to learn that the universe was whatever they had the courage to imagine it could become. The answer to what is reality had finally become whatever we make it. And humanity had taught the universe that this was the only answer that mattered. In the distance, children's laughter echoed across dimensions as they invented new games that would have been impossible under the old laws of physics. Reality continued to evolve, one impossible moment at a time, forever becoming something more wonderful than what it had been before. The moment reality broke had become the moment it learned to dream, and the dream was just beginning.